Добродојавте, драги гледачи, во уште една епизода од подкастот Чекор напред со М6. Денешната тема, верувам дека ќе најдете интересна, не само како професионалци од компаниите, туку како индивидуи, да се запознаеме со еден термин што е доста популарен последниве години, а тоа е терминот ESG или Environment, Social and Governance. Термин што многу компании, посебно меѓународните, го користат, дури изготвуваат годишни извештаи за нивниот прогрес и состојба на компаниите во однос на овие три аспекти. И затоа денеска со нас е еден познат консултант од оваа област, од ESG, господјата Марија Tsiadi, меѓународен консултант за ESG, истовремено држи обуки и ги консултира компаниите претежно од Западниот Балкан. Hi, Maria.
Hello.
It's very nice and pleasure to have you here today with us. Thank you for coming to be the guest of our podcast. I already introduced the topic, ESG, Environment, Social Governance, something that is known here in the country and in Western Balkans in general, but a lot of people and even companies do not know what that really means. Can you explain us briefly what ESG actually is?
ESG is a set of criteria created by investors in order to assess companies on other issues apart from profitability and credibility, on issues that have to do with how they deal with the environment, with the society in general, employees and communities, and also how they govern themselves.
So out of these three, what usually companies easily want to introduce or to discuss about, and what is the most difficult? Is it environment, social, or governance?
The most easy one is actually the social. Why? Because companies for many years now have already set up health and safety issues, which makes it easy for companies to give data upon that. We have systems, ISO systems, so companies know about that, and they always consider that the social side is the most easy to approach. In the social side, you also have a lot of information about what good you do to the community. So there they give a lot of data about planting trees, cleaning beaches, etc., which is actually a bit irrelevant to ESG. And the most difficult one to approach is actually governance. Why? Because governance has to do actually with the way you govern the company, and usually here you have to take a point next to the C-suite level or to the owners of the companies. And as we all know, most of the businesses in Europe are small, medium businesses owned by a person who, of course, eventually will give the business to his son or daughter. And that makes things a bit difficult because you cannot judge actually how things are run in a so family business. Mm-hmm. This is the most difficult one.
And how actually this ESG evolves, when first time appears and why it becomes popular among the companies?
Well, it appeared several decades ago from the investors, big investors like big funds, for example, where they wanted to assess the companies and they had foreseen that there is going to be a change in climate. Of course, I will not discuss about the change in climate is due to fossil oils, fossil fuels, or something else, because there are many scenarios. But the truth is that we do have a shift in climate. So the investors, because imagine that these investors, they spend trillions on something. They spend trillions on countries, for example. So they want to know if this amount of money is going to be sustainable in the future. So a couple of decades ago, they already started asking questions about what type of energy you have. How do you handle water resources? What do you do about nature? And okay, you have employees, you pay them, you have the taxes for them, but do you also look into their well-being, about their training and education? And this is how it all started. So from my perspective, bankers and investors are a good thing to have because they are the ones that they want to make sure that their money lasts. And of course, they ask for more information to be certain that the company is going to last for a very long time.
A lot of companies now are preparing annual report on ESG, the position of the company regarding environment, social, and governance. And it's now something beside that, it's good if you apply for the loan to have it. But beside that, there is a perception that they just prepare the reports and actually do not really implement or take care too much to develop in this direction. What is your experience in the Western Balkans with the companies in Western Balkans?
I will give examples from companies here in North Macedonia, actually, like Tikvas or Alkaloid, that they have already published consecutive ESG reports. And of course, these ESG reports, they work as a mirror for a company because you write down, you actually report everything that you have done in these areas, the same way you report about the financial outcomes of the company. And the same way when you report about your financial outcomes, you start to realize, oh, there's a gap here, there is a leak there, so you try to improve it in the upcoming years. Exactly the same thing, you have improvements because exactly you have the ability to see what you are lacking. So I will say, and I see what Tikvas Winery and what Alkaloid have done and what they report throughout the last years, that they have taken action in order to improve. And I believe that this is for the benefit of the company and also for the country. The same applies for the rest of the countries of the region and Europe, of course.
Is it that the bigger companies or the biggest companies in the country start with these reports, and then they push smaller through the supply chain, smaller companies to start taking care about all these three: environment, social, and governance criteria in their working?
Yes, correct.
They are change agents, I would say, huh?
Exactly, yes, because the European Union is starting to impose penalties to big multinational, usually corporations, but of course eventually it will go to other bigger companies in Europe, where they ask not only for me to be okay with my company, but also do you safeguard your suppliers. So for example, we have a big, I will not name, we have a big companies in the industry of fashion, for example, and they say here in Europe I have very nice shops and I take care of my people, and I have LED lighting in the buildings that I have, etc. But where these clothes are being fabricated and under what circumstances they are? So they have to comply also for their supply chain, and this is something which means that eventually even smaller companies will have to comply with the ESG framework.
And I would like to ask you, let's say ESG is related more with companies, but we have another side, Sustainable Development Goals, SDG of the United Nations, 17 of them. So what is the relation of these two acronyms, I would say, just in the beginning? And are there predecessors of what is now very popular circular economy that we are striving to achieve all around the world?
In 2015, the United Nations, they set up the goals for the next 15 years. We have to consider that the United Nations, which are approximately 200 countries that have signatures, every 15 years they set up global goals for the countries. So in 2015 in Paris, they set up the goals up to 2030. This is why many companies, they say up to 2030, I'm going to accomplish this. And people say, 2030, why? Because they want to support the countries that have signed these goals in order to achieve the development goals of the United Nations.
Practically, they are more specific what is social, what is environmental, and what is governance goals. In this 17, we can classify in these three categories: social, governance, and environmental goals. We mentioned about that companies are preparing these reports, but and I said they are predecessors probably for circular economy. And in circular economy, practically these three, environment, social, and governance, are transferred in 3P, which means planet, people, and profit. So that means the companies should not care anymore only about one bottom line, which is profit, but they should take care also about the planet, which is environment, and about the people, which is not only employees, but also broader society and even the country. They should bring some benefits from their working as a company to the broader society. According to your experience, that you are consultant in companies, big, small, in the region, are the owners of the businesses willing to not to consider only profit when they make their business decisions, but also the impact on society and environment?
Okay, first of all, let me clarify something, that this ESG is not only about circular economy, it is about circular economy as well. It all starts from the energy sector. I mean, we have an energy issue, basically. So what we need to do is to change into new forms of energy globally. And we all understand how much everything depends on energy. Circular economy is the second issue that we need to face. So it is not, SDGs is not only about circularity, it is mostly about energy. I mean, companies start about what you are doing with your energy resources, and then they start about waste management and eventually circularity. Now, planet profit is an earlier idea regarding ESG, where businesses, they could not comprehend the ESG concepts, environmental, social, governance. As I said, it started from the investors and the banks. So back then, the companies, the enterprises, they were speaking about people, planet, profit. So this concept sounds very good, 3Ps. The truth is that you need to have inspirational leaders who are willing to sacrifice part of their profit in order to make things better. There are many inspired people and the leaders and owners globally, not only in Europe or in the Western Balkans or in North Macedonia. I will say that in the past you would find very few. Today there are more and more. Why? Because you have the new generation of people coming up, and they are more inspired than the older generation. So I'm 50 years old. What I was brought up with was get a certificate, a university degree, in order to gain money, to have a good life. That was my purpose.
And not
professionally.
hardworking.
I'm Greek, so yes, ideally not by hard working. So the momentum of my generation was get a good university degree, find a good job, earn money, and live a good life, having 2 cars, 3 houses, 5 boats, and 10 kids, where they all go to the Harvard University. Today, children, even though, we say, they are different, it is a different era, and, they don't care. Today, the young generation, they are more into the issue of sustainability. So you see more inspirational leaders, especially the new generation, coming and saying, you know what, it's okay, I have money, I grew up well off, but I see that there is a problem here and I want to do something about that. So they are still scarce, but when you find them, they really make a hit and the difference.
So that makes hope that we can change our societies and planet on better.
Not only that, it also has to do with the retention of the talent. because me and you we would both like to work for companies that are inspirational. So when you hear about these inspirational companies, then you say, I want to work for this company, versus to another one that it is, not very friendly.
So we come to the point, to the question of that actually even the customers are going to buy products or services from the companies that they perceive that they are responsible towards the planet and people, and not just taking care about the profit. Can you notice that this is also shifting? It's in marketing more, but the customer behavior will shift, and the customers are willing to pay extra money, knowing that this money will be spent in the society and in the environment, which will make companies that implement these ESG practices will make ESG competitive advantage. Their competitive advantage in the market. So the profit, it will be again profit driven, but in the start they are willing to at least build perception that they are socially responsible. Are you agree with this? Or you can argue?
There are many studies that actually they say that people by certain percentages, 55%, 72%, there are many percentages, and there are many studies that say consumers, they choose consciously sustainable products that come from sustainable companies. I need to say, also being a Greek, which means that I'm not from a very wealthy country, and the same applies for North Macedonia. This is actually, yes, very typical in the Western European countries, that people are more well off. But I believe that still today, the price of the product is crucial.
But the wealthier the society, the bigger purchasing power, it will become a point of difference.
Absolutely.
Not the cheapest price, but where it is produced, with what kind of energy, what kind of labor, and are you returning something to the society or to the environment?
Not only that, you see the European Union and other countries as well, because the European Union was the pioneer in all this ESG regulation, and actually it became quite harsh on the companies, and this is why lately they say, okay, we are not going to be so strict. Many companies now, many countries, what they do now is that they impose to the companies to have better sourcing, to use better machinery, to give more to their employees. So it is not only that the consumer is going to ask for a better product, because by the time Greece or North Macedonia, they become well-off communities, I believe that, it's going to take some time. I see, though, that it is the countries themselves that they impose measures for the products to be more sustainable. So it's going to be a two-way attack, let's say, on the product. Both the consumers who are getting more and more knowledge, and also the countries that they want to have more good products for the people.
Employees that like to work for the companies.
Absolutely. Sustainability, I'm sorry to interrupt, but sustainability and innovation, they go hand in hand. So every company, and there is also studies about that, every company that embraces sustainability, they all see a boost in their innovation. I mean, why? Because they work with open doors, really open doors. Then the workforce feel that, yes, I can actually, take place in that company and improvise and find new solutions on the day-to-day issues that I have. So companies that embrace sustainability, they also see innovation boosting, and also see, exactly because their workforce is more happy to work for these companies, they also see a better workforce and a better production.
When we come to that this will be a sort of competitive advantage in future for the companies, do you witness or what do you think about the term greenwashing, which means the companies that are declaring themselves and create a perception that they are sustainable and they take care about the environment and society on one hand. On the other hand, they are not really doing that, just using this for marketing purposes. And now I think there are more strict regulations in the European Union when you can declare that something is sustainable, just because of this misuse of green terms.
Correct. Green is the new favorite color of companies, because in order to say that, you know, I am sustainable, I change the packaging from purple to green, and I say I have a green product, which actually it is green because it is a green packaging, but the product, it is not green per se.
The same way produced.
Exactly. So the European Union indeed has put out new rules and regulations against greenwashing. Now the issue is not only about what is green and what is not green, it is also who certifies what is green. And this is a bigger issue that we have. We have approximately 200 companies and 200 certificates in the European Union to certify that products are green. But these 200 certificates, not all of them assess the products correctly. So the European Union says on the one hand, be aware of greenwashing, and there are certain rules, and at the same time, thank God, they are starting to pay more attention to these certificates in order to say, I, as a European Union, will assess these certificates in order to ascertain that when you pay a certain amount as a company to be certified that you are green, that you are actually green. Because many companies, they are willing to become green, but if the certificate is, you know, a particular is tricky, then it doesn't support the company as well. So the European Union is taking action on two sides when it comes to greenwashing.
You work with companies from Western Balkans, but you have experience also from European Union companies. Can you make a brief comparison where we are as the Balkans and European Union, and what is the trend? How we are approaching and closing the gap?
The European Union countries, they have started this journey for more than a decade. I have to tell you that apart from the big manufacturing companies that started the journey a long time ago, alongside we had the financial institutions like banks or other financial institutions that started the journey of sustainability. So yes, the European Union countries, they have more, I would say, background, more knowledge. But of course, still, ESG is a concept which is relatively unknown to the European Union. Now, when it comes to the Western Balkans, exactly because you had other financial and political issues to solve in the in-between, it takes longer for you to comprehend this. And then you still don't have the political authority to impose some of these frameworks. I see, though, that the big companies in the Western Balkan regions, that they embrace sustainability, they really go for it, and they have competitive advantage. Why? Because, and you know, many conspiracy theories, they say that all this is about bringing back production from China. So we are going to try to make, for all other reasons, that China is very expensive, and, you know, to bring everything back. The truth is that in the Western Balkans, you have very good and low cost of production, which means that if you also embrace sustainability, you can become very, very competitive. So I know that in North Macedonia, there are many companies that work with German companies. And of course, the German corporations demand data from the North Macedonians, and it makes it a bit harsh. But if you provide it, comparing that in China, they don't provide anything, you can become very competitive.
Yeah, that's why we mentioned that big companies are change agents, changing the attitudes of all smaller companies in the supply chain. So European Union can influence on faster implementation through the funds, because they will prefer to grant any financial resources to the companies that already follow ESG implementation. So that's another instrument that can be used by European Union to close the gap between Western Balkans and European Union. You mentioned in the beginning that most difficult of these three, environment, social, and governance, is governance. Although seems maybe the less or easiest part, how to make companies to have the right governance, inclusion, not to be only running by the family, to include more in the board. And maybe governance is the crucial. Good governance will definitely have better approach to environment and to social issues. What are you going to suggest to owners, managers of the businesses in Western Balkans regarding implementation of ESG in their companies?
First of all,
how long it will take, if they haven't started, when to start, and what are the obstacles that they have to be ready to, challenges, I would say, to face, to overcome?
First of all, let me tell you that governance, whenever we have a crisis in a company, or when we have disruptions in the company, it is always about an issue of governance. You know, if you look at any company where you hear, oh, this company had a big challenge, and it was always something to do with the process and the policies of the company. And the process and the policies in the manufacturing, the process and the policy in how, for example, the salespeople behave. So it is always about an issue of governance.
And the root is always?
The root is always, give me one case study, and if we go deep into it, we are going to find that there was an issue in the governance. The same, for example, with Volkswagen. You know, you have heard about the scandal of Volkswagen, and they say, oh, you know, but somebody took wrong measurements. Why? Why was there a gap? Because in the end, was it a gap?
Or consciously?
Or consciously, because, and if it was a gap, how come? And somebody gave this gap to the company in order to create this scandal. So governance is actually a protection against crisis for the companies. So it is comprehensible for business owners to feel reluctant about changing even their own role. And I can understand that. I am an entrepreneur, I start something small, then I become bigger, I name myself CEO, and then eventually the company is 100 people. I have no managerial skill, I'm very good technical, but when it comes to managerial skills, I have none. Still I'm a CEO, and then eventually somebody will have to come and say, become something else, chief technical officer. You will still be the owner, but
just
we have
owner,
to
be in the board.
Be in the board, but you can. For example, we had this with Apple. You know, Apple was such a case. Okay, we had an inspirational leader, but he had no managerial skills, and eventually, what happened is that he was a good lecturer, a good salesperson, but he was a very bad manager. So he stepped aside and he did what he knew how to do well. So every company should embrace good governance for the benefit of the company and their own position. And when it comes to ESG, you have to start very small, actually. You know, it is a journey. ESG is not something that you accomplish in 1 year, in 2 years. Consider that we have companies that started the journey in 2020, and they set up targets for 2030, 2050, which means that it takes a long time to progress, and it is okay. The biggest challenge that you face is data. I mean, where do I find the data? Most companies will say, I have something, but it is here and there. So
to measure the progress.
To measure the progress and gather the initial data. For example, if you go today to a company and you say, how many electricity do you spend? They will not know. They will know, the accounting department will know how much they pay for energy, but they don't know how many
kilowatts per
megahertz.
product.
Exactly. So the kilowatts. So they don't know exactly how to measure. So we have an issue with the data. And the second thing, of course, we always have a pressure from the employees. Because, when employees, you ask them to do something extra, there is always resistance to change. So the resistance to change is not only from the upper management, it comes from the employees as well. They say, yes, I want sustainability. Okay, give me that data. Oh, this is extra work and why I have to do it. So there are many issues. Mostly it is the data gathering.
Yes, and you mentioned resistance to change. Actually, that is the main challenge because ESG is practically changing the mindset and corporate culture, how they think about the business, not just profit. We have to think more broader. We have to think through the whole supply chain. So it takes time. And you mentioned very well that it's not one shot. It is a journey that can take decades. But at least the companies should start this journey and has to know where they want to come with the key business, key indicators, performance indicators regarding the social and environmental issues. And what is most difficult to measure? Is it environmental, social, or governance? If you put metrics.
Yes.
The progress.
The progress. In the past, it used to be environmental because we didn't have data, what to count.
Now it's easiest way to.
Now it is the easiest way because you have data. I mean, you have templates, you have platforms, you have frameworks. They give you exact guidelines on what to measure, where to find it. So part of it is becoming more easy. We have, for example, the section of biodiversity. That biodiversity, we don't have metrics, and this is something that currently is being worked upon. In the social, because again, the social supposedly is the easy one. The social, how many employees do you have? I need to tell you that with big corporations, in many cases, you ask them, okay, give me how many employees you had this year versus last year. I cannot name names of companies, but there is always lacking one or two people at the end of the report. And we're always like, is it 1,201 or 1,200? Why? Because they missed somebody? Because when that person came, he or she, they came as a permanent employee. So they are always missing this data. And of course, then we have, for example, because of the ISO certification, how to measure health and safety incidents that happened, during the working time. But how do you measure well-being, for example, of the employees, which is something very important because I come to work, you pay me, I don't have an accident, thank you very much, because you take care of me, but I'm not happy, so I'm not a good producer. You come and tell me, improvise and do something, and I say, no, I don't care, because I don't have a well-being for any reason, because of the company or because of my personal issues. So how do you measure this well-being? And the biggest asset of any company are the employees. If they're not happy, you make nothing. And thank God, before you correctly mentioned that sustainability is not just a buzzword, sustainability, it is actually a strategy. It is a new way of doing business. Up to now, we were doing business because we liked something. We said we're going to produce it and sell it and make money, and we live happily ever after. Today, sustainability is we are going to make profit, and we want profit, and sustainability wants profitable companies in order to have more and more people working for them. But you have to do it in a better manner for the environment and the society. And you also need to be non-corrupted. You need to be ethical. So sustainability is just a better way of doing business.
Thank you, Maria, for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Explaining all these issues that maybe are not so clear even to me, even to the audience. So thank you again, and I hope there will be another occasion. I know that you are coming frequently here to M.16 Education Center, and I hope there will be also some of the audience that is watching us and going to enroll to the conferences and seminars that you are lecturer at.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and they are more welcome. Training is the first step to anything new. It's like artificial intelligence. We don't know what it is, so we get trained to understand what artificial intelligence is. The same thing about ESG. You need to train in order to understand what it is. M6 has training programs. They start from basic knowledge up to more specific one. You also get a certificate for this. So yes, I hope that more people and from companies are going to join the training sessions.
I'm sure after this.
Thank you very much.
Драги гледачи, тоа беше разговорот со Марија Циади, експерт за ESG, Environmental Social Governance. Се надевам дека разјаснивме или појаснивме некои од термините кои често ги слушаме овие последниве години и ни станува појасно каде треба да се движи нашата економија, нашите компании во следниот период со цел да останат конкурентни не само на домашниот пазар, туку и на европскиот пазар кон кој стремиме. Ви благодарам што бевте со нас со М6 чекор надпред подкастот и се надевам ќе се видиме наскоро.